Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The gun pressed against his temple was cold, but the hand holding it trembled, a fatal mistake in this line of work. "Do it," Dante whispered, his voice a low rumble of thunder that seemed to vibrate through the mahogany floorboards of the penthouse. He sat motionless in his wheelchair, a blanket draped over his useless legs, his eyes closed as if bored. "Pull the trigger, Marco. But know that the moment you do, you start a war you cannot finish." The traitor, Marco, laughed nervously, sweat beading on his forehead. "You can't threaten me anymore, boss. You're a cripple, a broken king on a rolling throne. The syndicate needs a leader who can stand, not one who needs a nursemaid to." Thwack! The sound was wet and dull. Before Marco could finish his sentence, a silver streak flashed through the air. A throwing knife buried itself into Marco's wrist, severing tendons. The gun clattered to the floor. From the shadows of the room's entrance emerged a figure clad in a fitted black suit, moving with the silent, terrifying grace of a panther stalking prey. It was the new hire, the one everyone called the mute pretty boy, Ren. Ren didn't speak. He stepped over the writhing traitor, his face an impassive mask of porcelain beauty, cold and devastating. He didn't look at the sobbing man on the floor. His obsidian eyes were fixed solely on Dante. He knelt beside the wheelchair, placing a hand gently on the armrest, placing his body between the threat and his master. "Are you unharmed, sir?" Ren asked, his voice soft, like velvet dragging over gravel. Dante looked down at the young man. For 6 months, Dante Valerius, the lion of the underworld, had feigned paralysis. He had played the invalid to expose the rats gnawing at the foundations of his empire. He had expected betrayal. He had expected ambition. What he hadn't expected was him. 6 months earlier, the rain in Seattle was relentless, washing the grime of the city into the gutters, but it could never wash away the sins of the Valerius crime family. Dante sat in the center of his study, the wheels of his chair digging into the Persian rug. The doctor had been paid millions to lie. The official report said the bullet had severed the L4 vertebra, leaving Dante paralyzed from the waist down. In reality, the surgery had been a complete success. Dante could walk. He could run. He could kill with his bare hands, just as he always had. But a beast is most dangerous when it plays dead. "Next," Dante commanded, staring out the window. His consigliere, Silas, opened the heavy oak doors. "This is the last one for the personal guard position, sir. His name is Ren Hirose, former eclectic mercenary work in East Asia. His background is redacted." Dante didn't turn around. "Send him in." The footsteps were barely audible. That was the first thing Dante noticed. Most men walked heavy with ego or fear. This man walked like smoke. "They say I am a cripple," Dante said, spinning the chair around to face the applicant. "They say I am weak. Why would a man with your resume want to wipe the ass of a broken man?" Ren stood in the center of the room. He was younger than Dante expected, perhaps in his mid-20s. He possessed a beauty that was almost jarring in the brutal world of the mafia. Sharp cheekbones, pale skin, and hair the color of midnight ink that fell slightly over his eyes. But beneath the delicate features, Dante saw the stance. Balanced, ready to strike. Ren looked at the wheelchair, then up into Dante's steel-gray eyes. There was no pity in his gaze. Only a strange, intense reverence. "A sword does not judge the hand that wields it," Ren said simply. "It only serves. If you are broken, then I will be your legs. If you are weak, I will be your strength. I require only one thing." Dante raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. "And that is?" "Total obedience," Ren said, his gaze darkening. "From me to you. But in return, no one touches you but me." The audacity hung in the air. Silas reached for his holster, offended by the insolence, but Dante raised a hand. A slow, predatory smile touched his lips. "You're hired." The test of will. The months that followed were a torture Dante had not anticipated. The plan was simple. Feign weakness, let the ambitious capos lower their guard, and then strike. But the variable he hadn't accounted for was the intimacy of having Ren Hirose as a shadow. Ren took his duties with a terrifying seriousness. He moved Dante from the chair to the bed. He dressed him. He handled the daily humiliations of a paralyzed man with a dignity that made Dante's chest ache. It was a Tuesday evening when the masquerade almost shattered. Rin was assisting Dante with his bath. The bathroom was a cathedral of marble and steam. Dante sat on the shower bench, naked, water cascading over his sculpted, muscular torso. He had to keep his muscles tensed, pretending they were atrophied, but Rin's touch was maddening. Rin knelt on the wet tiles, a sponge in hand. He wore his dress shirt, now soaked and clinging to his lean frame, revealing the definition of his shoulders. He washed Dante's legs with methodical, gentle strokes. "You have kept your muscle mass well," Rin murmured, his fingers tracing the quadricep. "It is impressive." Dante gritted his teeth. He could feel every millimeter of Rin's calloused fingertips. The sensation sent electric shocks straight to his groin. He had to focus on the cold tile, on business, on murder, anything to prevent his body from reacting as a healthy man's body would. "Genetics," Dante grunted, closing his eyes. "And the electrical stimulation therapy." Rin paused. His hand lingered on Dante's inner thigh. The heat from his palm was searing. For a second, the air in the bathroom grew heavy, suffocatingly charged. "You are tense, sir," Rin whispered. He looked up, water dripping from his lashes. His eyes were dark pools of unreadable emotion. "Does it hurt?" "Yes," Dante thought. "It hurts that I cannot pin you against this wall and show you exactly how healthy I am." "It is uncomfortable," Dante lied. "Finish up." Rin nodded, his expression shifting to a slight frown. "I would kill anyone who caused you pain," he said, so quietly it was almost lost under the sound of the water. "Even if I had to burn the world down to find them." Dante opened his eyes, startled by the ferocity in the boy's voice. This wasn't just a job for Rin. "Why? Why me, Rin?" Dante asked, his voice dropping an octave. "You could be a kingpin in your own right." "Why, sir?" Rin stood up, grabbing a towel. He wrapped it around Dante with efficient care, but he didn't pull away immediately. He leaned in, his face inches from Dante's. Dante could smell him, rainwater, gunpowder, and a faint hint of sandalwood soap. "Because," Rin said, his gaze dropping to Dante's lips for a fraction of a second, "some men are born to rule, and some are born to protect the ruler. I found my king. It does not matter if the king sits on a throne or a wheelchair." Dante's heart hammered against his ribs. He wanted to break cover. He wanted to grab Rin by the lapels and kiss him until they were both breathless. But he couldn't. Not yet. The trap for the traitor wasn't sprung. "Get the chair," Dante ordered gruffly, looking away. The betrayal. The gala was held at the Valerius estate. It was a display of power, a Shark Tank where the wealthy and the corrupt mingled. Dante sat in his chair, a glass of whiskey resting on his knee, watching the room. Marco, his second in command, was circling the room like a vulture. Dante had intercepted the encrypted messages. Tonight was the night. Marco had made a deal with the Russian Bratva to take Dante out and split the territory. "You look tired, boss," Marco said, sliding up beside him. He clapped a hand on Dante's shoulder, a gesture that was patronizing, almost disrespectful. "Maybe you should retire early. Let the big boys handle the business." Rin stepped forward from the shadows, his hand twitching toward the knife concealed in his sleeve. "Stand down, run," Dante commanded. He had to let Marco make the first move. "The boy is a loyal dog," Marco sneered, looking Rin up and down with a lecherous gaze. "Pretty, though. Wasted on a cripple. When you're gone, maybe I'll keep him as a pet." The air temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. Dante saw Rin's eyes dilate. It wasn't anger. It was the cold calculation of a slaughter. But Rin obeyed. He stood still, vibrating with restrained violence. "Enjoy the party, Marco," Dante said dryly. "It will be your last." Marco laughed and walked away. 2 hours later, the lights went out. Panic erupted. Screams echoed through the ballroom. Dante knew the drill. It was a hit. "Sir." Rin was there instantly. He didn't wait for instructions. He grabbed the handles of the wheelchair and sprinted, pushing Dante through the panicking crowd toward the service exit. "The East Wing," Dante shouted over the noise of suppressed gunfire. "My office." They burst into the hallway, but it was blocked. 3 men wearing tactical gear and balaclavas stood at the end of the corridor, assault rifles raised. "Down!" Rin screamed. He didn't shove the wheelchair. He flipped it. Dante was thrown onto the carpet as Rin kicked the wheelchair over to use as a makeshift shield. Bullets tore into the metal and the walls, shredding the expensive wallpaper. "Stay down," Rin roared. He pulled a handgun from his holster, a sleek, custom model. He popped up from behind the overturned chair, firing 3 shots in rapid succession. 2 men dropped. The third scrambled for cover. "Run! Give me a gun!" Dante yelled. He was tired of playing the victim. "No." Rin looked back, his face streaked with dust, eyes wild with fear. Not for himself, but for Dante. "You can't aim. Your core stability. Stay down, Dante." It was the first time he had used his first name. Rin vaulted over the wheelchair, charging the last gunman. It was a suicide move. He closed the distance, engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The gunman was larger, wielding a combat knife. Rin was fast, but he was outnumbered as 2 more assailants breached the stairwell behind them. Rin took a slash to the arm. Blood sprayed onto the white walls. He grunted but didn't falter, snapping the man's wrist and driving a knee into his skull. But the 2 reinforcements raised their rifles. Rin was in the open. He looked back at Dante, who was lying on the floor. Rin didn't try to dodge. He didn't try to run. He threw himself backward, spreading his arms wide to create a human wall between the bullets and Dante. "No!" Dante roared. The logic of the plan shattered. The need to find the traitor vanished. All that mattered was the man willing to die for a lie. Dante Valerius stood up. It happened in a blur of motion that defied the human eye. Dante launched himself from the floor, his legs, powerful, explosive, functioning perfectly, propelling him forward. He grabbed a letter opener from a hallway table as he passed it. He reached Ren just as the mercenaries fired. Dante tackled Ron, spinning them both in the air, his body absorbing the impact as they crashed into the adjacent room. But he didn't stop. He rolled, coming up to his feet with a roar of pure, primal rage. The mercenaries froze. The cripple was standing. He was towering over them, a demon in a torn tuxedo. "You made a mistake," Dante growled. He closed the distance. It wasn't a fight, it was an execution. Dante moved with the brutality of a man who had been caging his violence for half a year. He disarmed the first man, breaking his arm with a sickening crunch, and used him as a shield against the second. Within 10 seconds, silence returned to the hallway. Dante stood amidst the carnage, chest heaving. He slowly turned around. Ren was sitting on the floor, clutching his bleeding arm. His eyes were wide, fixed on Dante's legs. The shock on his face was absolute. The betrayal in his eyes was worse than the bullet wound. "You," Ren whispered. "You can walk." The aftermath. The safe house was quiet. The traitor Marco had been dealt with. Dante had personally ensured his end was slow. But the victory felt like ash in his mouth. Dante entered the medical room. Ren was sitting on the edge of the bed, his arm bandaged. He was staring at the floor. He hadn't spoken a word since the hallway. Dante closed the door and locked it. He walked across the room. No wheelchair, no limp. "Let me see the arm," Dante said quietly. Ren pulled away. "I can tend to myself, sir. I am not the one who needs." Pretending. The venom in his voice was sharp. "Run," Dante said, pulling a chair over and sitting opposite him. "I did what I had to do to secure the family." "You lied." Ren looked up, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears of anger. "Every day? When I carried you. When I washed you. When I swore to die for you because I thought you were helpless. You watched me. Was it funny? Was the loyal dog amusing to you?" "No," Dante said intensely, leaning forward. He reached out, grabbing Ren's uninjured hand. Ren tried to pull away, but Dante held firm. It was torture. Ren froze. "What? Do you have any idea?" Dante hissed, his voice dropping to a rough whisper. "What it is like to have the person you desire touch you every day and be unable to do anything about it? To have you bathe me, care for me, look at me with that devotion, and have to play the role of a stone." Ren's breath hitched. "You desire me. I am obsessed with you," Dante corrected. "I plan to wait. I planned to reveal the truth after Marco was dead. But when I saw those guns aimed at you, when I saw you throw your life away for me, the plan didn't matter. Nothing mattered but you." Dante stood up and stepped between Ren's legs. He cupped Ren's face in his large hands, forcing him to look up. "I am not a cripple, Ren. I am a monster. And I am a monster who nearly lost the only thing that makes him feel human. Rin searched Dante's eyes, looking for deceit. He found only raw, naked hunger. The anger in Rin's chest began to melt, replaced by the thrumming heat that had always been there, hidden beneath the surface of duty. You are a bastard, Rin whispered, his hand coming up to grip Dante's wrist. I am, Dante agreed. He brushed his thumb over Rin's lower lip. Punish me if you want. I give you permission. For tonight, the power is yours. Rin's eyes darkened. The submissive bodyguard vanished, replaced by the dangerous mercenary Dante had hired. He grabbed Dante's tie and yanked him down, crashing their lips together in a kiss that tasted of blood, survival, and inevitable surrender. It wasn't gentle. It was a collision, a claiming. Dante groaned into the kiss, his hands sliding down to grip Rin's waist, lifting him off the bed as if he weighed nothing. Rin wrapped his legs around Dante's waist, the legs that could now support them both. I'll forgive you, Rin breathed against Dante's neck, biting the skin there. But you will spend the rest of your life making it up to me. Dante walked them toward the bed, never breaking the kiss. That, Dante vowed, is a deal I accept. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. Or perhaps, how the wolf finally caught the viper. If you enjoyed seeing Dante rise from the ashes to protect what's his, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a lover who faked a disability to test your loyalty, or would you leave them immediately? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art, 2 men, BL, Yaoi, man 1. Dante tall, muscular, wearing torn tuxedo, standing powerfully, fierce protective expression, dark hair, holding a gun, dominant pose, man 2. Run, slim but toned, kneeling on floor, looking up in shock and awe, holding bleeding arm, wearing black bodyguard suit, beautiful face, dark eyes. Background is destroyed luxurious hallway, bullet holes in walls, overturned. Wheelchair in foreground, shattered glass, dramatic cinematic lighting, shadows, debris, intense atmosphere, sharp focus.